better not have no plans tonight.
Movie time and it's feeling right.
You're looking for a love that lasts. You'll find it at Romancing the Podcast. Ooh, ooh, baby, you had me at hello. Ooh, I love you.
I know.
Ooh, ooh, baby, you're the wind beneath my wings. Ooh, I'll have what she's having.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at hello. I'm Paige Wesley.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And this week, I guess, made you watch
No Hard Feelings.
Which I do want to say is a movie I had not seen, but it did come out and there was some buzz about it because it's Jennifer Lawrence and people love her.
Sure.
So I'm assuming it was the first time you saw it too, Paige.
Yes, and I'll never get that time back.
Paige, you will not get it back.
I will not get it back.
I will not allow it. So I'm taking that you didn't love it. Maybe that's not true, but that's what I got out of that joke.
No, yeah, that I did not love it. Now, here's the thing. I didn't hate it. There are some genuinely hilarious parts of this movie.
Yes. When she gutter chucks sand into that dude's eyes before she beats up the other dude while
she
completely
beats people
naked.
Up naked.
Fuck, I laughed out loud. Like there are some very genuinely funny moments in this movie.
There's some genuinely hilarious parts of this movie.
And Jennifer Lawrence's comfortability with just looking like a fool on camera, I find awesome. Most actresses won't do like the pressing your face against the windshield so you can see like teeth and gums and like it just she does so many things in this movie that like because her character is not great like position her in like a very silly or funny looking way and she just like embraces it. I love it so much.
Here's my problem with this movie. If I had to pick a word to describe this movie, it's murky. And it's not the part you think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree.
It's not the part you think because he's 19. He's a fucking adult.
Oh, no, yeah, he is an adult.
The relationship part, not all that murky. It's exactly what you expect from a movie like this. I think they respect his consent. She makes decenter choices at the end. That's not the part I'm murky about.
And I do want to point out that the movie even shows the other side of this when you meet that one character at like the restaurant or bar she works at who's like walking to the nice car. And she's like maybe a little bit older than Piercy is in this movie, but is very much like a taken care of side piece for a Wall Streeter who is like here for the summer, right?
Yes.
So there is the other side of that shown in this movie. And there's no way that guy's 20, you know?
I have no problem with the way any of that is presented in this movie.
Same.
My murkiness comes with who they think needs to learn lessons in this movie and the lessons they think they need to learn. And here's my biggest problem because yes, Jennifer Lawrence's character has some therapy she needs to go to.
Of course.
She's not a great person. She does grow over the course of the movie.
She does.
Great arc. Cool.
Yeah.
My problem is that she is presented not as this being a one-time thing of her being a bad person and that it's all her fault. She's presented as being genuinely and tangibly economically disenfranchised by gentrification that his family is causing, and they think he and his family don't need to learn no lessons. And that's the part that made me hate this movie because, and I realize what I'm about to say sounds insane. I have a point. I promise. Please go with me. If you think about a movie like Good Burger, and I know that's a crazy example, but it was the best one I could think of on the amount of sleep I've had. In the movie Good Burger, Keenan's character ends up working at Good Burger because he makes a mistake and crashes his mom's car into his principal's or his teacher's car when he wasn't supposed to be driving it, right? That's one big mistake, and his life is bad because of that mistake. That is not the case with Jennifer Lawrence's character in this movie. Is she not a great person? Does she not have, a great track record with commitment? Has she not been nice to the men in her life? Yes, and those are things that we will go through in this movie.
Yeah, she learns lessons about all of that shit.
Sure.
Yeah.
But as far as her financial situation, which is the push for her to do some of these things, that is not her fault.
No.
She is working multiple jobs to try and afford the taxes on the home she already owns because people like Percy's family have moved in and made the taxes higher.
Yeah.
It is not her fault. She is stuck in an economic position that she's been forced into. Now, Percy, on the other hand, the movie seems to think that Percy's lesson just needs to be to let go. At no point in this movie do they have any recognition for Percy of his privilege in this world.
Oh, they do. Like, they talk about it. Like, she even says it. Like, she sort of explains Maslow's hierarchy of needs to him.
But he doesn't fucking get it. He never learns.
Of course not. He's 19. He's rich. He's going to Princeton. No, he's never going to understand that.
I know. I need him to understand something. But this movie doesn't ever give him any understanding of that. In fact, they go so far as to give her a broken car. Like, literally, she fulfills all the tenets of her agreement.
Yeah.
And his parents, that's a throwaway car. They had money to buy her a fucking new car if they wanted.
Of course.
No, they gave her a burden that she had to fucking fix and bought him a brand new car. And it made me fucking furious that the movie is still like, she needs to work on herself. Fuck you. Fuck you for having the back half of this movie be her like, I finally saved money. I'm sorry, bitch. Your financial situation was not a moral failing.
No, it wasn't.
In this movie. It's not because you had like a gambling problem. Like,
no.
You're just trying to fucking survive, and the movie takes that as something she needs to learn, not fucking him. And I hate that so much. And it ruined what could have been kind of a fun, very predictable movie for me.
Yeah. See, I don't mind it when movies reflect reality. And so, like, the things you just outlined are, like, very much reality. And just because he doesn't learn shit, which in reality, he wouldn't learn shit, she still needed to learn stuff and grow, and she does, and I liked watching her learn it. I understand what you're saying. It's just, like, the movie doesn't really treat him like a full, fleshed-out character necessarily.
That's 100% true, and I think maybe that's the problem. Because, like, from a story point, if he is also a main character, he should also have some growth.
I agree.
And he really doesn't. The movie thinks he does, but he does not.
I think he has growth on some things, and it's only the things that his parents are concerned with. So, like, yeah, so he's drinking alcohol now, I guess.
Great.
Because at the end of this movie, when he's having wine with his parents, he pours that glass of wine like a professional drinker. Like, he's been drinking for years. And also, he's, like, had a sexual experience, although it wasn't full sex.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like he's grown in those areas, but he hasn't learned anything about like how his privilege can be seen by the classes that he and his parents exploit for their riches. But that is very much reality. Like a 19-year-old kid of that privilege is probably super into like Andrew Tate and shit like that.
Yeah.
Like he would be calling himself an alpha this whole movie and talking about how he's a high value man or whatever.
I know, it's disgusting. It makes me think of a similar movie that's done better, and that is The Girl Next Door, where they both have arcs. They both learn.
From that perspective, I think it is way better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it treats them both as full ass characters.
Yes.
And I agree. Like, I think if you're looking at this from the Joseph Campbellian, like, story circle perspective, he doesn't really get that.
Yep.
I think she does. I honestly think this movie isn't necessarily a rom-com. It's a coming of age tale, sort of for him, but for her too.
Mostly for her. Yeah.
Yeah. It is her, like, really getting over, and one thing that's not really made me sad is we don't really ever see this in the movie, but it's like really her getting over, her putting on herself that she needs to like save the house because that's what her mom wanted or whatever.
Right.
And even though it doesn't make her happy.
Right.
Like if they had shown me that actually does make her happy, I would have wanted her to stay in the house.
Sure.
But when she sells it to her friends who like do want to stay.
That.
I love that. And I love that she grew and was like, California is more for me because I'm into surfing and I live at an East Coast beach.
Right.
So like I should get out west for sure.
Right.
Not that there isn't good surfing on the East Coast, but like I don't surf. I don't know.
I mean, that's what she wanted to do.
Yeah, but that sounds way more like Mission Beach, San Diego, or someplace in LA or whatever. Let's just go buy a house because she probably could sell that place for a lot. And I know she didn't get what she could have for it, but I bet she got a few million out of it.
No, there's no way that her friends could afford a few million.
Well, I mean,
there's no way.
I don't know. I mean, that's what that real estate would go for. I don't know. But I'm just saying, I think she could realistically buy a place in California where she's going.
I think she could rent an apartment in California. I do not think that, because she says that she could have gotten more and didn't, that she sold it to them for much under market value.
Sure.
And I think at best, if she's buying any real estate near any beach in California, she's renting at best. There is no way she could afford to purchase anything.
Oh, you've never been to Montauk.
No, it doesn't matter. She didn't sell it to them for market. She sold it to them for what they could afford.
Yeah.
Which was definitely not a couple mil, because if it was...
Yeah, but I mean, we're arguing over made up numbers, but like Montauk is like, the cheapest house is like $8 million.
Sure.
So like, even if she got $4 million for it, that's a deal for them. And she could buy a house in California easy, is all I'm saying.
I still don't think they paid that much.
We don't know. I mean, who knows? That's just a speculation based on what you think about their income level. But he runs that, like, I don't know, boat business on some level. I don't know. None of this matters because it's all made up side character stuff.
It is. But we know that they were moving to Florida, which means that, like, they were going to pay maybe 3 to 5. And that's what they could probably afford.
Million? You could definitely buy a place in Florida for $4 million.
No. 3 to 500. 3 to 500 is what most things in Florida go for, unless they're literally moving to like the nicest,
like Miami or like Orlando or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm assuming that that's about what they paid for her for that house.
There's no way.
Even though it's worth a lot more.
Okay, I'm an asshole then, because if my best friend was like, hey, I want to sell you my house, that the real estate alone is worth $8 million.
Right.
You could demolish the place and sell it or whatever.
Right.
I would then buy it for $150K and then sell it the next fucking day for $8 million.
Sure, of course.
And laugh my ass all the way to the bank. Like that's...
I know, but that's why she tells the real estate agent he's going to hate it. Because he's not going to make that much of a commission, and she's just going to sell it to them for what they can afford.
The only sex crime in this movie is glossed over in a joke about marrying
in
your
a really
sex pest.
terrible way.
I really did not
Hated
love that
that
part of the movie. But I don't know if you're done with your first thoughts page, but...
Yeah, no, go ahead.
This, I thought, was my favorite modern retelling of Arabian Nights with the genders reversed that I think I've ever seen. It was great.
Please explain yourself.
So in Arabian Nights, she doesn't want to get murdered, so she tells them a story every night,
right,
and then doesn't finish it until the next morning or whatever, and then they continue out their relationship. And I realize relationship in that context is very in quotes because
there's some power imbalance. Yeah, sure.
For sure. But in this movie, something happens every night when she's just supposed to be able to like bang him and get rid of him and get the car that like forces them to spend more time together and to get and get to know each other as people. And I was like, man, it's that old Arabian Nights trope. And I loved it.
All right.
I also thought that this movie was going to be way worse than it was because when it came out, people were like, the premise is a little weird, not illegal. I think what I heard was not illegal, but weird.
Yeah, it's not
I'll
illegal.
agree with that. But like,
it's
not like they have sex once in this movie.
They don't.
I mean, he does complete on her.
Yes, there's no penetrative sex in this movie. Let's say that. Yes.
I do think it is a sexual act. Yes, for sure.
Sure.
But it is not like she picks him up and they start banging immediately, which is exactly what would have happened in real life. But
right?
Yeah.
That's the part where I'm like, okay, so we're going to be realistic about him not learning about his privilege, but not realistic about him basically treating her as disposable.
Right? I did think the guy who played Piercy did such a great job in making him seem like a real character. So like, I did buy when he was like uncomfortable with it until he like knew her more and like was they actually start to build the friendship I think they retain at the end of this movie, which I kind of like. But there's no way at the end of this movie his Google porn search history is not from group sex, which it was before, to just straight up MILF porn, because she has forever warped what he is attracted to. I'll just say that right now for sure.
I do, and I think maybe that's part of why his turn at the end bothers me so much, is because in the earlier sections he's such a sweet boy that you're like, you really do feel for him. He's kind of a romantic. And then the second he finds out that maybe it's not what he thought it was, he becomes cruel
Yeah.
in a way that is normal for his class, but made me be like, oh, you weren't a sweet boy at all.
It's also
You're
normal
awful.
for his age. Like, if you're 19 and you have your heart broken,
Sure.
like, you're going to lash out in very stupid, unproductive ways.
Yes.
And I did really love that they still gave her the car their son destroyed. I thought that was
drove
so
me
accurate to
insane.
what
Yeah,
actually
I do think
happened.
it's accurate.
It was so funny to me. And like the fact that he starts off the conversation, he being Matthew Broderick,
Right.
starts off a conversation about giving someone a shitty car. He didn't start it with, and I realize I have run over someone in an old shitty car before, but I thought it was so funny. Anyway, I also love that he was like, he started the conversation with, first off, we respect sex workers. Like, he's very much putting her in her place. And I was like, this is actually very like real to like what I think these people actually treat us like.
Oh, here's the thing. I thought his parents were incredibly real. I didn't have a problem with his parents at all.
Me either.
I needed more growth from him.
I mean, I did on a socioeconomical level, but as
Sure,
characters
yes.
in the movie, it all made sense to me.
I thought they were very realistic.
Yes.
I have a weird fun fact about the mom.
Is it that she's the same age as actual Jennifer Lawrence? Because I would buy it.
No. And she's not. But
Okay.
anyway, I expect his parents to act like that. I needed him, the boy, to learn and act better.
Yeah.
And it does not happen.
The way it gets away with it for me is we don't ever see him be like elitist to somebody. But I do know, because I know enough people that started out as rich kids.
Sure.
And then went to a prestigious school that have then gone on to destroy America. Like, I know he's going to be a monster one day. Like, he is on his way to like going to Wall Street and just figuring out new and inventive ways to suck money out of the middle class without producing anything or contributing to society in any meaningful way. But you sort of like him in the movie because at this point in his life, he is sort of sweet. And the guy who plays him does a great job.
For 2 acts. The third act, that kid is a monster.
That's what I'm saying.
The things he says to her are unforgivable.
Yeah.
And it makes it it makes me hate the movie. Because I'm like, he was a sweet boy. He was empathetic.
Yeah.
There was something we could have done with this. And we didn't. In fact, we let him be cruel. And he finishes the movie cruel. And I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Yeah, I am super bothered by class issues in today's society as well. But in this movie, I didn't really think about it because the movie doesn't really think about it. But I agree with that criticism of it because it's not wrong.
Yeah.
But there's like a sweet spot with like very raunchy comedy that is like curtailed into like, I think, sort of grounded in reality emotional moments.
Yes.
And this movie, I think, does that transition pretty smoothly, even if those emotional moments, I think, ultimately are maybe teaching a lesson that isn't fair. Like when she's like confiding in him about how she's the product of an affair and like she never really met her dad and stuff like that. She is explaining why she can't afford the house they live in to someone.
Right.
And like why she doesn't have a dad to help.
Right.
To someone who is like of that abuser class in her mind. I don't know. It's just like.
Well, and then later when he's like, you do have a rich dad, you just won't talk to him, was like, no, she
Exactly.
does not.
The way he uses
She
that
doesn't.
to hurt her later. Right. Like she tried to talk to him. You know this.
Yes.
You know the letter got returned. Like at that point in the movie, he knows all of those things.
Yes.
It's incredibly hurtful. I completely agree. But it felt so real to me.
Hate it.
That he would treat people that way.
If it was just his classism, yes. But what we have seen of him in the rest of the movie, at least trying to understand her, no. It seems out of character.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do think he's out of character because it is like post-heartbreak, right? So like he is an unaccountable nightmare.
Yes.
Until she confronts him at the Princeton mixer at the mansion later at the very end of the movie. And then they become sort of friendly again after what happens.
Well, they become friendly because she confronts him.
Exactly.
He never apologizes, even in that confrontation. Nothing. He admits no part in any of it.
Yeah.
And I hate it. I hate it. So I'm like, this is also why I hate the end of Pretty in Pink. Like, I hate it. This is just, the rich person got to just be rich and everyone else is expendable and the poor people are the ones that have to learn a lesson. Fuck you. No.
This movie, even though it did come out recently, this is a pre-Luigi movie. Sure. I do think that'll have some ramifications on shit like this. But like, I don't, it just doesn't bother me because it does feel like reality. Like I bought all of that, you know? But anyway, I do think there are a lot of funny moments in the movie. So like, I can't wait to go through them with you scene by scene.
Sure. We open on a tow truck driving through Montauk and pulling into a driveway where they are seizing assets. They're taking Jennifer Lawrence's car.
Because she can't pay her property taxes.
She can't pay her property taxes.
Which is not like, okay, it's not your mortgage, guys.
Not only is it not your mortgage, the amount, well, I guess they could still seize assets, but usually they'd seize the house, not the car. Like there'd be a lien on it.
Yeah, I don't know how accurate to reality this is. I have fortunately
so.
never been in that situation because I was too poor to be in a house until 4 years ago.
Right.
So like I've never been in that situation. But in my mind, you would put a lien on the house and then if they tried to sell it, that's when you would recoup that money. Or you would just take the house.
Or someone else can pay the taxes and then they would own the house. Yeah.
Right. However that works out. Because again, I don't know. I'm not like a real estate attorney. But yeah.
Well, it's different state to state. But yes, usually what you have described is, yeah. So I don't know why they're seizing the car unless she wasn't paying for the car. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
She's like, I'm an Uber driver. I can't work if I don't have this car. And she's kind of begging the tow truck driver, who it will become clear she has ghosted and maybe was not kind to.
I love this scene so much because it really shows you who Jennifer Lawrence is at the beginning of the movie. Because like she is, like you're saying, like talking to this guy she ghosted who is taking her car.
Right.
And is trying to like, man, I've been thinking about you. I miss you.
We should get back
like,
together.
Let's just like put the car down.
I miss hearing what the Jets are doing wrong.
and how you would be a better head coach than whoever or whatever. And he's like, they would be better, right? And she's like, totally. And then she's like, you know, I saw a green sock last night. I was like, that's Gary's or whatever his name is. And like all of that is happening while he is starting to notice the very like svelte Italian man in like nothing but like a Speedo more or less walks out her front door
house
and is doing like calisthenics in her front yard. And then she says, oh, that's my cousin.
That's my cousin.
And he's like, he starts to talk in Italian, and then the lie grows. She's like, oh, it's my Italian cousin. And then he walks over and like grabs her boobs and goes, he's my second cousin. It's fine. It's whatever. It's like, it's just showing her like trying to lie her way out of everything instead of taking responsibility for what's going on in her life. And shit, it was so funny. It's such a funny way to set her up as a character.
My favorite was when he's going to take the car. He gets in the tow truck. He's like, you know, my sister was right. And she was like, the one that was accused of elder abuse. And I was like, there's another story. Like, what's happening over there? There's a lot of things like that in this movie where you're like, wait a second, what's happening with those characters?
Hang on, can we put a pin in that and come back to that later? Because I'm interested. What's going on with that elder abuse situation?
That's like Hassan Minaj's character's backstory. You're like, hold on. And then you find little tidbits more of it and you're like, oh no. Like,
we'll talk about it when we get there, but there's something I seriously hate about that moment.
Oh, yeah, a lot. But she yells after him that like, you know, you can't decide. And apparently him being indecisive was a thing.
Right.
So she rollerblades. But as she's rollerblading to work, she passes her car as he's in like a coffee shop, unable to decide.
Yes.
Like banana bread, lemon loaf. And she goes to get her car down. She lowers it, but she doesn't take the hook out of it.
Yeah, because she's an idiot. Paige, she's not a clear thinker. Like, she's just acting out of impulse. I mean, she's like rollerblading to work like she's a college student in 1998. Like, it's crazy to me.
The amount of times they have her not take the rollerblades off
Paige,
and try to get through life is madness. Yeah, in court. She was rollerblading. Because literally she tries to get the car down. She doesn't do the hook. She spins out. We cut to her basically after court where, yes. she does have the rollerblades on. And her, I assume, lawyer or friend who is a local lawyer who is great on Reservoir Dogs. But she says, she's like, can you believe these people are pushing me out of my home? And she just looks at him and she's like, well, I guess you can believe it, huh? Like,
I guess you do get it. Yeah.
I guess you do get it.
Which is obviously very funny. And I do think that they wanted to acknowledge that we are sort of, even though we're not delving into it a lot, we're sort of telling up like a gentrification story. And it's like a white person's gentrification story.
White people do get gentrified sometimes. It's more of a class issue. I mean, it's both. It's intersectional.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Racism and classism are very intertwined. But
yes,
you're not wrong. It does happen to everybody. It happens to everybody. Of the lower classes. So, like, I did like that they acknowledged this.
Right.
Because it was a white person complaining to a Native
to an
American.
indigenous person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, can you believe these assholes are coming and taking my land? And he's like,
my Montauk? And he's like, yeah, I can.
say the name of the island again.
Say
and
it.
ask what country came up with it. It was us.
It was my people.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I like that they acknowledged it at least. It was great.
Oh, God. But so she goes to bartend. She's in a bad mood. She's fighting with a guy who wants to come in and drink, but it's not noon. It's 11:57. And I do love that he tipped her and he's like, how about now? And she goes, it's 11:56. I was like, that's my kind of bitch. Let's go.
I did love that her boss, or I don't know, maybe just her coworker comes over and was like, hey, you cannot be a bitch in June. Like, you could be terrible
in
September,
bitch in October,
or in whatever. Like, you
March.
just can't be terrible in June. That's when we make our money. You know this. Like,
yes.
She doesn't fire her, but she is very much like, you need to calm your shit down. And she's like, I'm sorry, I had a bad morning, which I get. Because, like, her whole morning has just been what I see as, like, the Facebook definition of the it's complicated relationship status.
Right.
It's just, like, her whole life is terrible.
It's a mess.
Like, there's a lot of mess going on, for sure.
Yes. But we cut to her with her friends, who I do love her friends. They crack me up.
The one thing I was very upset about her friends is in this scene, we hear that he has a full Roadrunner back tattoo, and then they never show us that.
I never see it.
Mad about that.
I wanted to see it.
But I'll say this about those two people. They're both great. They're very funny in this movie, but you recognize them. Their names are escaping me for some reason, so I'll look it up.
Yes.
But like, I recognized his voice before I saw him. I was like, I love this guy. Oh, it's Scott MacArthur. It's Scott MacArthur and Natalie Morales.
Yes.
Who you've seen in tons of things, but you may not know them by name.
They're those people. Like,
yes.
That guy, that girl.
They're great. They're so funny in this movie too. But like, Natalie actually has like if you're looking at the story circle, like the meeting of the goddess conversation with Jennifer Lawrence, where she's like, are you happy? Like, so like,
are you happy?
They're not even just funny. They, as a couple, do have like a lot of emotional weight to them too. They're great. But like, I do find Jim just very funny in the way that like a husband who just like isn't maybe very smart, but just loves his wife and wants to do what's right by his wife and is like maybe making the wrong choices and doing things that are sort of dumb to achieve that goal. But that's very much like Jim's vibe, and I love it. It's sort of like a Homer Simpson kind of a thing.
Very much so. They reminded me of every set of coworkers that gets married, where they were coworkers, then they got married, and then this is what happens.
I mean, they might have met at that bar. You know what I'm saying?
I think
like they might
did.
both be townies, for lack of a better term.
Sure. I think it was a below deck situation. Like if two people from below deck got married, it's these people.
Love it.
Yep. And they are pregnant. So she's pregnant. They're having to figure out how they're going to support this baby moving forward.
Yes.
But they're in the same situation as Jennifer Lawrence, where it's kind of like they're working multiple jobs. They've got the boats that they're doing, whatever.
But they're like trying to give her suggestions on how she can make money without a car.
Sell her eggs, doing OnlyFans.
I just love that like Jim was like saying you could sell your eggs, you could sell your liver, you could sell whatever.
Sell your kidneys.
He's like carving something out of wood and he's like, the human body is a cash cow. It's like so like callously as he's carving. It's just so funny. And the fact that his wife calls him on like, how do you know what an OnlyFans is? And he then like sort of shuts up. He's like, I don't know, whatever, man.
I don't know.
But also like pop culture exists. Like I've never subscribed to anybody's OnlyFans. I know what OnlyFans is.
Yeah. I do love that she's like, I can feel the baby getting dumber. I love these people. They're great.
And I actually do like love their relationship. They seem very loving and supportive of each other. Like I like it.
Yeah. But this is where they come across the Craigslist ad where two people want someone to air quotes date their son.
Yes.
Which is, it's the equivalent of people who take their children, like, and by children, I mean like an 18-year-old boy, to a brothel the day they turn 18. Which, like, while I 100% believe that sex work should be legal and decriminalized and regulated to keep people safe, that that is where I'm at.
Yeah.
I still think it's gross for people to do that to an 18-year-old and make that their first time.
I think it's gross because it's like the parents making them do that or sort of like taking them to do that.
Yes. That's the part that grosses me out.
Yeah, that's the part that makes me uncomfortable about it. I don't really care if it's like that person's choice and they're an adult, like whatever.
Sure.
But it's weird that like your dad's going to drop you off at the brothel, right?
Yes.
That's weird. Because, like, you need to learn a lesson about manhood or whatever. It just feels like a gross ritual from, like, Roman days. Like, Plutarch dropped his kid off at a brothel before he wrote the book. Like, what?
Yeah. And, like, here's the thing. If an 18-year-old person on their own was like, I want to do this, and I'm going to go do this, I don't really have a problem with that. You're 18.
That was exactly my distinction, too. Yes. Yeah. That's my line.
You know, make your choice. It's weird to me when someone's like, you've got to learn, so I'm going to take you.
Yeah.
That I don't love. That I really don't love.
Which is not exactly this movie, because Matthew Broderick and the kid's mom are just more about, like, manipulating the situation to make it actually happen without the kid knowing.
Right.
Which I would argue is, if they pull it off, better? Question mark? Because at least it's not like your dad dropping you off at the brothel, but it's still terrible.
Well, I have some questions consensually with it, because he doesn't fully know what he's consenting to at that point, and which is why I was kind of glad that they did not actually, you know.
Oh, same. I thought that everyone disliked this movie when they were giving me feedback about it because that happened, but it doesn't. I was actually very relieved that they don't even do anything sexual until he does know.
Right. I know. I liked that too.
I mean, they kiss, but like nothing more than that.
Right. Anyway, they want somebody in their early 20s, and she's like, I could pass for that, and I'd get a Buick Regal if I did it.
It's a 1998 Buick Regal, which if it was in mint condition, which it's not, it's got 40,000 miles on it, it would be worth $5,000 today. Now, I'm not saying that, because what she thinks she's signing up for is like taking this kid out once, having sex with him, and never dealing with it again and moving on. So, like, whatever. If it's more transactional, I bet, like, sure, that's probably what it costs to hire someone to do that for a night. I don't know. Right. But for the amount of work she has to put in, it's not worth it, guys.
No, it's not worth it. The amount of days she probably had to take off work.
And she's losing money because she can't drive for Uber.
Because she can't drive for Uber.
So funny, yeah.
I do love that Jim is like, well, why don't you do it to his wife? And she just goes, go to the sea. And I was like, go to the sea. I loved that. But we cut to past due bills at her house, and it is implied that she then calls to set up that Craigslist meeting, because the next shot is her rollerblading to this giant house and up this giant driveway, and then having to climb stairs in the rollerblades.
I thought it was very
just
funny.
Just take off the rollerblades.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I mean, when I was in college, would occasionally rollerblade to class because I lived very close and parking was a fucking nightmare, but it was like too far to walk if you would woken up because you had a show the night before, so you were already a little bit late. But I could like get across campus real quick in some rollerblades, but I would throw my shoes like over I would tie the shoelaces together, put them over my shoulder and ride them there over my shoulder and then put them on.
Yeah.
And just throw my rollerblades. We had like a place you could like put shoes and umbrellas and stuff, and I would just leave it there. And I would go to class. It was like easy. I thought it was so funny that she just didn't bring shoes with her or any, like she didn't even like take them off and walk up the steps.
Nothing, yeah.
She awkwardly climbs the steps with the rollerblades on, which was very funny. And they just sit there and watch her because that's what you would do if you look down on people of this social class.
Yes, and I guess that's why I'm frustrated, because like the movie knows, and like it still doesn't do anything about it. But like in this scene where she's like, "Do you guys want to come down?" and they were like, "No, come on." I was like, "Oh my god, come on up."
In fairness to them, like if I was at the top of those steps and I was there to have a meeting with someone and I don't want to meet with them on the steps,
I'd be like, "Come on up. We can wait for you to take the blades off."
I'd say, "Come on up too," and I would expect for them to sit down and take the fucking rollerblades off and then walk up the steps. But maybe I understand why Matthew Broderick and his wife feel better than her.
Yeah.
And it might not be class related, although I think it is.
Yep.
But it's a really dumb move on her part, is all I'm saying.
Yes. But they sit her down in the living room and they're like, first and foremost, we respect sex workers. And she's like, that's not me. I just need a car. And there's like how old are you? Last year, right now. Like, no, I'm 32.
I do love that conversation about age, though. It's like, how old are you? I'm like, I just turned 29. When? A year ago. Last year? Yeah, last year. So you're 30? 32. Like,
32.
I thought that whole back and forth was very funny.
But I do love her pitch of like, look, I bet I'm here because you haven't found anyone yet, because young girls are idiots. And I am smart and tactful. So like, let me at him.
Yeah, so like I can get this done for you.
Right.
And she's like, so do you want me to like date him or like date him?
Date him.
And they're like, we want you to date him. And Matthew Broderick's like, date him real hard.
Yeah.
She's like, I'll date his socks off. Like it's so like coded. Like it's like when if your mom asked you if you could buy marijuana in a state that's illegal.
Right.
Like that's how she would do it. It's like that sort of like overtly silly.
Right. But then they go into talking about who he is as a kid.
Yeah.
And he's a sweet boy. He's a sweet boy who's been bullied, we will find out.
Yeah, of course.
And it's wild to me once we find out more about him and why he was bullied, that this is what they chose instead of just letting him go to Princeton and starting over and being a new, different person. Because I think he probably would have and been okay. But like,
well, I think they do give a valid reason for why his parents do this to him. And it's because his dad sort of organically had an experience with an older woman before he went to school, and he's trying to force that experience on his son.
Right.
Because he feels like it's the right way to live or whatever, because it was his lived experience.
Yeah.
Which is dumb, but like that's definitely what
I understand.
happened.
I also loved that they gave her a giant cheese plate and she's trying to put as much of it in her mouth as possible before the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I found this very accurate to my lived experience around a cheese plate.
Same.
I was like, oh, Jennifer Lawrence is making all the acting choices I would just be making if I was in front of a cheese plate.
Sure.
Yeah, I would be hoarding it like a squirrel page. That's all I'm saying.
But we get a cut, like a kind of a montage of him like staring at a ceiling fan, playing music and VR and TikTok. And we find out that he volunteers at the animal shelter from 10 to 6.
Which is a long shift to volunteer. Like, he obviously cares about these animals, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I do love that we get like the montage of his nerdiness or whatever, and then him going to the volunteer shelter or whatever, and then as we get like the long shot or wide shot of him sort of chaining his bike up and walking in, she steps in over the shoulder and you get like the horror music of like, oh, she's stalking him. Like, I think the movie does a very good, funny job of setting up like what is happening here, because he has no idea he's about to get meet cuted.
Oh, he's oblivious for so long. And I love how this kind of turns out, because it's like, if you're viewing it through the lens of like a super horny teen in like a sex comedy, it looks one way. But if you're viewing it through the lens of a reality-based experience with a stranger, it very much looks a different way. So like she comes in, he's playing with a dog. And I do love that. What was his...
the guy who ran the shelter?
Yeah, I forget his name, but he's just like, can I offer you some unconditional love? And I was just like, no, oh my God, what a terrible pitch.
His name is Crispin, by the way.
Crispin!
And
That's
he
what
is playing the
Crispin.
character like it's Crispin Glover running a dog shelter.
Yes! Oh my God.
But like in a very funny way. Like it's so weird, but like silly. I loved it.
Oh, when he came back at the end, I was dying. Like I was mad at what was happening, but I was still like, of course he called that weird kid.
Yeah.
But like, I do also like, he's like, don't worry, I won't bite. I've been neutered. I was like, what? What?
Well, he's a little bit, he's a little older. He knows what's for sale. Like he was, flirting a little bit.
But this is where she's like, what's your most fucked up dog? And he's like, Milo. He used to be a drug dog, and then he got addicted to cocaine. And she's like, cocaine? And the dog goes fucking nuts. And this runner for the dog that's addicted to coke is so funny to me. It's sad, but so funny to me.
I think it's hilarious. But yeah, it is sort of sad just because the dog got addicted to cocaine. But
yeah.
It was very funny.
Look, the dog knows how to party, okay?
Right?
But he takes her into the office to try and go fill out like a form for adopting a dog.
And like she is like trying to like, hey, can we go somewhere private? And like she's like really laying it on thick. And she is way out of his league, let's just say it that way, in looks.
Sure.
So much so that like if this was happening to me, I would also pull mace on her.
Sure.
Because I would assume that I would be ending up in a bathtub filled with ice with no liver.
Right. Well, because she's just like, let's go somewhere. Let's leave early.
I don't know if you know, the human body's a cash cow, and he's
a cash cow.
friends with her.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying maybe she's trying to like get his spleen to pay those payments.
Yeah, who knows? I do love that he's like, pet ownership might not be for you. You seem like someone we might take a dog from.
I thought it was very
like,
funny.
God.
I did love her response, though, when he was like, so why do you want to adopt a dog? And she said, because I can't have dogs of my own.
Oh, I loved that.
I was like, that is my vibe. I love that. Yeah, that is me to a T, baby.
But she basically is like, can you get off early? Let's go somewhere. And he's like, oh, God, oh, God. And she like talks him out of the office into her van. Is like, oh, we'll just put your bike back here. And then as they're driving in the van, he's like trying to text someone like, call 911. He looks in the back of the van. It's machetes and pitchforks. It's just like bad. They get out. She like parks at her house. He's like, this isn't my house. And she's like, oh, you got something there for me? Because he's like fumbling in his pocket. And then he maces her.
Yes.
And like he does spray her down with the hose, which by the way is not the business. You got to get milk. But that might help.
Yeah, I did think that was very funny because, like, she is, like, in a dress. She's full on trying to seduce this child, bang it, and be done with it. You know, like, that is her mode right now. And I thought it was very funny that this ends with, like, her on her knees, like, getting sprayed with a hose.
Right.
Just, it was so funny. And she was like, I'm not trying to kidnap you. I was trying to date you. And he's like, oh, you want to go on a date? Let's just go on a date. And she, like, still is in the mindset of, I got to bang this kid tonight and get back on the road for Uber tomorrow. You know?
Yes.
So she's like, cool, I'll go change. Like, she has just been maced. Her face is still bright red. And she's like, I'll go put another dress on. We can go. And he's like, let's just go tomorrow. Like, we'll just do tomorrow night works too. And so they agree to like end it there. And so he gets his bike and rides his bike the rest of the way home, which I also found very funny.
Well, and I love that then she meets with her friends as she's like still trying to like unmace her eyes, and she's like, this kid is dumb as hell. Like,
I know.
He's unfuckable. And I was like, no. That kid responded rationally to what was happening.
Yeah, that's so true. But like, if he was a normal guy, like he probably would have just like rolled with it because I mean,
right.
when Natalie and I first met, like there's no reason I should have thought that it would go well and me not get murdered because it was like,
right.
I mean, I met her when we were out with friends and then we sort of met one-on-one way later on. And it was like, she was out with friends the night we met, so she couldn't meet until like 11 at night.
Right.
At like a Waffle House, like in a rural area. So I was like, oh, I might get murdered or whatever, because she's way out of my league. So like, I took a risk. It was worth it. I took the risk, but like, yeah. We ended up talking until like 4 a.m. and then going home and texting till the sun came up. But like, it could have gone with like me getting buried until the sun came up.
Yeah, I mean, it was a Waffle House. So yeah, it's a 50-50 chance it's either her or the staff.
Woo. If it's the staff, you might end up in the food. Although I actually really do like Waffle House.
I fucking love you, Waffle House.
I know, please.
I wish we had them here. We don't have them.
That was a joke. You don't have Waffle Houses out there? Oh, Paige, I forgot. Paige.
I love them. We just don't have them. It's sad.
That's right. Whenever you come into Kansas City, we go to Waffle House immediately.
That's right. I forgot.
Okay. Guys, check out your local Waffle House. Make sure they're doing okay. It's cold out there.
It's cold out there. We only have like 2 Cracker Barrels in the entire state, and they are not close by either. But I love me some Cracker Barrel too.
It's only because you don't have it.
That's fair. But I do prefer their hash brown casserole to Waffle House's hash browns. Fight me.
Honestly, Paige, that's the only thing I like really actually do like at Cracker Barrel. Like everything else is sort of mid for me except for that.
I like their biscuits. Like, you know, it's mostly the accoutrements.
I like their kazoos. Anyway.
Yeah, and they're taffy. But I love that she then sets up a date at the bar. He shows up seemingly in a suit until we reveal that he's wearing shorts on the bottom.
I loved that reveal because it's like shot of him like, oh, he dressed up for this date at a bar. Like he does not know what's happening tonight. He does not know what he's in store for.
Right.
And then it reveals that he's still wearing shorts and you're like, oh, and he's still a child.
Right.
That's right. At least, I mean, and I realize he's legally an adult, but I mean like, he's very much being coded as a child.
I do also love, so she like orders them Long Island iced teas because they had Coke, not Pepsi. And I was like, who would choose Pepsi? But anyway.
But I did love that he like sat down and the waitress comes up and he acts like a I don't know, like a petulant teenager who is frustrated that they can't get chicken tendies at Uncle Baby Bobby Billy's Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Like, it's a steakhouse, sir.
Right.
You cannot get chicky tendies, except chicky tendies in this context is Pepsi, which is the wrong soda to order anyway. And he says, should we go? Like, you're going to leave because they don't have Pepsi, bitch? That's a reason to stay.
Anyway, this is also where we find out that his parents have been tracking him. They track his phone.
Seemingly, he's fine with it. Like, he just says it so nonchalantly. It's like, well, my parents need to know where I am.
Right. Well, and I do love what she brings up later this night of like, why? You're an adult.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, but I love this scene where she's like, you ever had any like intense dreams? And she's trying to like, sexual dreams. And he's like,
she doesn't say sexual.
She doesn't say it until after she says intense.
Do you ever have like intense dreams? Because she's like, I don't know. I feel like this is going to sound like I had a negative experience and I did not, but I feel like I have fallen for this trap many times when like a girl is like flirting with me and you're like, so tell me about it. And she's like, I had these really intense dreams about you the other night. I don't want to talk about it. And the way he responds to it is like, oh, of course not. It's your private dream. It's fine. You don't have to tell me anything.
It's your private.
It's private. It's privacy. Private. I understand. And like, she very much wants him to like lean in and be like, no, tell me.
Tell me about it.
But he is like unfuckable. So like, he just was like, no, it's private. I understand.
Well, he's oblivious. And then she's like, do you ever have any intense dreams? Tell me about it. And he's like, okay, so I had this one where Harley Quinn wants to come adopt a dog, but then she puts me in a dog cage. It's like this whole thing. And it's kind of similar to what she did, which makes it even scarier. And she's like, that make you come? And he's like, what? No, you said intense.
He's like, no. What?
No.
You said intense dream. I thought it was so funny too.
Well, and I love that he's like, I used to have nightmares about this song, and it's Maneater by Hall & Oates.
Oh, and he's like, it's about a monster. And she's like, I don't think that's what the song's about. And this is one of those moments where I'm like, damn, the writing in this movie is actually not bad, because his response to that is, I'll look into that. And he does looking into a man-eater currently.
Oh,
and he also does go home and like learn the song. Maybe not for her, but because of her, maybe.
Right.
I don't know that he ever would have played it for her, but it got him interested in it at least.
I do also love the this is the worst iced tea ever. The Long Island iced tea is like just booze.
Oh, you mean what I would look like if I drank alcohol for the first time? Yeah, I was like, oh, that's definitely how I would know if I drank alcohol for the first time.
Well, he was just like onto the table.
Yeah. He's like, God, they don't have Pepsi, but they got this shit?
Here's the other thing. A Long Island in particular is all alcohol. Like, it is the booziest booze of booze. But like, if we handed you like a real pina colada, you probably wouldn't notice.
Maybe not.
But
I don't
like
know.
A Long Island iced tea, impossible to not notice. Anyway, so a former boyfriend, conquest or whatever of hers comes up to the table. He's like, haha, I'm married now. And I was like, oh, pathetic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but he's drunk and making bad decisions.
Yeah.
Like, you don't ever do this. Like, if you see someone who like you fell for and they blew you off and you're now married, don't gloat.
Yeah.
They're glad you're married. They're glad they don't have to deal with you. Like, you're just reinforcing their belief that they did the right thing. Like, this is not a good look for you.
Yeah. Like, don't go up to somebody in an airport and kiss your wedding ring. Like, that's creepy behavior. That's weird behavior.
I guess you'd just be lucky that it's an airport then.
You'd be lucky this is an airport.
Oh my God. That's a joke for one person who doesn't listen to the podcast.
Doesn't listen to the podcast. Worth it. But she's like, let's get out of here. They go out to the beach and he's like, it's closed. There's red flags. We shouldn't be out there. And she tries to play this like, oh, so I'm ugly to you because you don't want to do anything. He's like, no, you're like the prettiest person. She's like, where? And she like takes her shirt off and she's like,
she literally takes her clothes off and is like, where am I pretty? And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what would happen.
Yeah. Well, and I love that he's like, isn't this how Jaws started?
Which like, yes. Yeah, it is how Jaws started. And the guy at the beginning would have died had he not, I guess, tripped and passed out.
Yeah. Anyway, they end up skinny dipping, but then a bunch of teenagers take their clothes and she literally goes back up onto the beach, full naked, gutter chuck sand at that and
so
just beats
funny.
The shit out of those children.
She like pile drives one of them. Like she's stone cold Steve Austin at one point, and it's hilarious. It goes from like a beach seduction scene to like a GTA 5 side mission in like 2 seconds.
Well, and one of the kids just like punches up into her crotch and you're like, oh my God, like what is this movie?
It's actually the one girl that was in the scene.
It is the
who
one
I
girl.
think was only there so they could do that joke and it not seem terrible.
Oh God. But then she gets back and it literally jump cut to she's back in the water.
She's like, so where were we? After just beating the shit out of people. It's hilarious.
He's like, did you beat up those kids? No, they apologized, but they were screaming. Something's wrong with you.
Yeah, those were the apologies.
Those are the apologies.
Yeah.
Something's really wrong with you. She's like, what? Why? You wouldn't have done it. Sack up, ho. And I was like, I love this. At this point in the movie, I'm all in. I'm like, all right. But he's like, no, I'm out. She gets out of the water. She puts her clothes on. She's got his clothes.
Yeah.
And she like goes to hand them to him through the window, but she has his phone.
Yeah.
She won't give him back his phone. And he climbs naked onto the hood of the car. Now that I think about it, there's a whole lot of overlap with this and Girl Next Door.
Yeah, there is. Because he walks naked down the street or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But I do think Girl Next Door character-wise does it better. But so they end up driving past a cop car who goes to pull them over, but she goes across the train tracks and loses the cops because she can't afford to lose her license.
Well, because a train's going through and it's like, it is like an action movie sequence for a short time while they're doing this like high-speed chase from the cops, although it's very quick. But after the near-death experience, because even if that train had clipped that car, he would have died.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even if she didn't, like if it barely hit it, he would have flown off that car.
Oh, absolutely.
But after that near-death experience, they sort of have a more calm conversation.
Right. But they end up back at her house.
Yeah.
And she's trying to give him a lap dance, and he's like, you're kind of heavy on my leg. And she's like, oh, do you want to switch?
And then they do. Paige. And then they do. I thought it was hilarious. And he's just like sitting on her like he's a child.
Oh, so funny. But he's like, oh, okay, let's have sex. But then he breaks out in a rash. And so instead she like, okay, let's take care of this rash.
Yeah.
Like, let me put some balm on it, whatever.
This is like the Arabian Nighting of the movie, right? Because they were supposed to just bone this night and they can't because she's like taking care of him and that forces them to like talk a little bit.
Sure. And this is where we find out that like she came back to take care of her mom and her dad's gone, but we don't know why. And then this is where we find out that he had to change schools because there was a rumor about him still occasionally sleeping in his parents' room. And then that became in the same bed. Then it became sex. And it's like none of that happened. He just occasionally slept in his parents' room because he was scared. And, you know, they let that happen or whatever. But he then couldn't go back to school. And so he's like, I kind of just spend time alone. I've got my online friends and Jody, who is his former nanny, who we will meet later.
I love Jody. Jody is hilarious to me.
We cut to, they spend the day together. The next day they go to an arcade and they're having a good time together.
Yeah.
Where I do love that he buys her like or with his tickets, a drink helmet that she could put cans in. And he's like, now you can drink while you're at bat. It's just crazy. And then this introduces the Chinese finger trap.
Which, oh my God.
Boy, does that come back.
At the end of this movie, oh my God.
Wild. But this is where they both explain why they didn't go to prom.
Yeah.
And she tells him about the unopened letter and like, you know, she was the product of an affair over a summer. His family vacationed here, which also means that she probably would have seen him every summer. Or at least her mom would have.
I wonder if he stopped coming out there when she was born or whatever because he didn't want to have to deal with it. And I would assume he paid child support, but like was not a part of her life at all, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. We don't really know much about like, we do know how her mom died, but not exactly when. And so there's some, you know, question about that kind of stuff, but like it's not really talked about. It's sort of glossed over.
Yeah. But this is where, you know, they've kind of learned about each other and he's like, can I kiss you? And she's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And then they go to the lighthouse where they meet Jody, who is played by Kyle Mooney of SNL fame. And he's basically like, what the fuck do you want with him? He's a precious little baby. And if you hurt him, I'll hurt you. And she's like, yeah, no, I want the same thing as you, to date him. Basically being like, you creep.
When he shows up at the end of the movie and she's just like, all right, get on with it. My name is Jody and I'm a register.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was so funny because she hates this dude immediately. And I kind of understood why and thought it was very funny.
Very funny. But we cut to her at home and she's looking at that letter in her drawer, that returned letter. And she's explaining to her friends that like they haven't had sex yet. That's why she doesn't have the car. But who should interrupt them? But at the door is Hassan Minaj, or Doug Khan. We find out is his name. And she's like, didn't you sleep with our Spanish teacher? He's like, actually, I married our Spanish teacher. And I hate that. I really do.
It's grosser than that. She says, didn't you sleep with our Spanish teacher? And then says her by name. And he's like, yes, I did. And then she goes, is that teacher still in jail, saying her name? And he's like, no, but Miss Khan did go to jail. We got married.
Yes. The news doesn't cover that part. And you're like, no.
They're like, no.
It's very Mary Kay Letourneau.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I don't love this. This is not great that it's like a joke, but we don't really see it ever again. It's like not even addressed.
No, it comes back one other time.
Well, to make a joke about it. There's no like arc. Yeah. You know, like that's it.
No, there's no arc.
He is just married to a lady 40 years older than him who abused him.
I was going to say that's what comes back later is that she was 40 years older. I was like, oh no.
Which means she was like 55 when he was 17 or whatever. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway, we cut to, she gets ready for dinner. She puts on what I assume was her prom dress.
Like actual prom dress?
Yeah, I think so, because she had it.
Yeah.
Because they get a limo and they're basically both going to prom because he didn't go. He just wanted to stay invisible. So this is both of their chance to have a prom.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cute.
Yeah, he left his phone at home. They hold hands. They make a toast. He's fighting with the crab legs. He's like, they're sharp. It's like, I'm sorry, she's not cutting them for you.
I know, right?
But she's like, there's a piano, and she's like, play something for me. And she's like, if you don't, I'll make a toast telling everyone what a great lover you are. And he just goes, it's time they know. But then she goes to do it, and he's like, no, okay, I'll play something. And he plays Maneater in its entirety. It's great. I was like, first of all, this kid can fucking sing.
I know.
Secondly,
he's actually playing piano too.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if that's him playing in the sound of it all. They may have replaced that, but he's playing in the scene.
Yeah. And she has almost this confused look of like, this is kind of vulnerable. He did learn this. He is really good at this, but like, that's not at all what I thought this was. Like, this is deeper than I expected. Because he comes back to the table, and on his way back to the table, he runs into, she like immediately is like, oh my God, what is that? How did you? And he's like, well, I learned it after we talked about it. But before they can continue talking about that.
Yeah, this is when Natalie, the girl from high school who was also going to Princeton, comes over and is like, hey, Piercy, are you going to Princeton? I'm going to Princeton. And that's when I was like, oh, Natalie's going to be his real first.
Right.
When they go to Princeton. Like, that's going to happen for sure.
Right. And she's like, well, we're doing a party. You should come after with your mom or whatever. And I was just like, oh God. Like, first of all, she doesn't look that old, but still. And she's jealous immediately.
I don't know if it's full jealousy or if it's just like, I have a job to do. Please don't fuck this up for me kind of a thing. But it might be straight up jealousy too.
I think it's murky, right? Like, which is the code name for this movie. Because I think it is both jealousy, but also recognition that this can't go farther. And that's like, he should probably be with Natalie, but then where does that leave me? Someone who now has feelings and has experienced someone caring for them and being nice to them. Well, what do I do then?
Yeah.
Like, is that just one more person who's going to leave? Like, I actually did feel like, as far as her arc goes, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
Because she's kind of like, who is this bitch now? And he's like, oh, that's just Natalie. But anyway, I'm trying to get my license so I could drive to see you on the weekends. And she's like, we can't. Like, that's not.
It's like a 5-hour drive. Like, that's dumb. We're not going to do that.
Right. Well, and I do love that he's like, I don't know what you want.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, he's like, this is a relationship. Why did you talk to me? Why did you do any of this thing? And she's realizing, like, I don't know what I want either.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
Because, like, I do think she cares about him. And in the next couple scenes, we'll see that. But I also think she's like, I need that car. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But he's like, I'd like to leave. They go to the party. And I love that he, like, in the limo, just downs a bottle. He's like, no, I love vermouth. And I was like, oh God, no. Like, no, that's not a thing you swig. That's a thing you mix with other things.
Oh, is it?
Yes. Yes, it is still an alcohol, but it's usually something you would mix with other alcohols. Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
So for him to be like, I love vermouth, you're like, oh, no. But yeah. So they get to the party. And I love the clips we get of the kids at the party making videos of like, this is trash Gucci.
I love trash Gucci.
Anti-bullying.
I love it. Yeah. I think that is exactly the stereotype of that generation, if that makes sense. I'm not saying it's like necessarily accurate to people's lived experience, but
Sure.
I think that is the way like older generations see that generation, and it's very funny to me.
Yes, it was nuts.
I also loved her frustration when she was like trying to like find Piercy, who is at a party for like kids are going to college with a girl he has a crush on. Like she's trying to like sort of stop them from hooking up. So she's like busting into rooms that like he might be in. And in none of those rooms are people having sex. Like they're like either just on their phones, or one of them's like someone named Piercy, but he's by himself and it's not the same guy. Like it just happened to be named Piercy. Like it's so funny to me. And like she exasperatingly yells at one point, like she's like, don't people fuck anymore? Like what is happening? It's very funny to me.
It's hysterical.
But she does eventually find them at the party.
Right. Well, she finds out that he is with Natalie upstairs, and she gets there and he seems in a bad way. He seems that he's not doing well, and they're like, he took a pill.
Yeah, Natalie says that, yeah.
And she, experienced partier, is like, all right, throw it up. Like, make yourself throw up.
Yep.
Do you feel better? And he's like, not even at all. I didn't realize I couldn't take ibuprofen with alcohol. And it's like, first of all, you definitely can. But secondly, like, oh my God, you poor kid.
I know, right?
But at that point, the parents bust in, and the parents are like, of course we're in the house. You think we'd let them have a party without, it's ridiculous.
Without our consent is what they say? Yeah.
Yes. Without our consent. But he drunkenly goes to punch the dad, accidentally punches Jennifer Lawrence in the throat instead. She falls, like she crashes through like a sidebar thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, we should go. They run down to the limo. She's like icing her throat with a can, and he's laying in her lap. Just poor, pathetic boy. And it's just like, I just need you to know I would never hurt you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no. Poor sweet boy.
He feels guilty about punching her.
Yes.
Like I understood. Yeah.
No, I thought it was very sweet.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm ready for you. And he has so many condoms. He's like, where's the perforation? He's like struggling. But she says, hey, you're drunk. And he's like, a little. And she's like, I don't think we should do it when you're drunk, especially not your first time.
Yeah,
okay?
because I'm not out here trying to catch a charge. You know what I'm saying?
I ain't trying to catch charges. But also she's like, you care about this. Like, you are a romantic. You want this to be nice.
Yeah.
So no. And he's like, well, I'll wait if that's what you want. She says, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And so we cut to the next morning where he's like, I want to get a driver's license because my girlfriend's here and I don't want to go to Princeton. And they're like, what? No. And they call Jennifer Lawrence, and she was about to call them back because she's like, he's getting way too attached.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do this anymore. She's willing to give up that car. She's like, I can't.
Yeah, it seems like she was like on the couch, like trying to build up the courage to call them when they call her.
Yeah.
Because she answers right away and she's like, I was about to call you. We got to talk. And like they were sort of like, Matthew Broderick was even like, call her, I want to yell at her before they call her.
Yeah.
And the mom sort of like talks him down a little bit from that because like she's the one person who can convince him to go to Princeton,
right,
which is what we want. So we can't yell at her, which is the right way to approach that, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
But when they call her, they realize they're all on the same side very quickly.
Yes.
So like they don't yell at her. They don't really even talk down to her that much. They're just like, how do we game plan this to make it work? But because Percy's in the car and the phone switches to the car, he overhears Jennifer Lawrence's side of the conversation as his parents lose her side of the conversation. So it's like she says something that's like very blatant. It's like, so I don't have to have sex with him and I can still have the car or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's no coming back from that. Like he knows at this point.
Well, and I also think that as much as she was like, I was working up the courage to call you, I think she would have told him next. You know, like
I do think she would have too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the only reason she doesn't is because they tell her like, hey, you just have to convince him to Princeton and you can have the car or whatever. And she's like, okay. So she goes to the house. He's having dinner with his parents. He's invited her to, and he's like, oh, did I double book? I didn't. Like, y'all have stuff to hash out, basically. And he's very mean to her in this moment, which I understand because he's been lied to or whatever, but at no point does he take any of this back. Ever.
Nor does it treat it like he needs to. The movie doesn't even treat it like he needs to. Yeah. And I do get that, like, he has been wronged by Jennifer Lawrence and his parents.
Sure.
Like, he is heartbroken. I mean, he flips to a level of petty I would respect if I didn't just know in my heart that he's going to destroy people's lives with his job, in a way that, like, Luigi would, take notice of.
Sure. I also think that there's an element to this, and if she had had the chance to tell him herself, she could have maybe explained, I need to be honest with you because I care about you.
Yeah.
And because she does care and does try to pursue a friendship with him, I feel like there should be some recognition of, I'm sorry I said those things. I was upset in that moment. And like, I do care about you too.
I definitely think that's a part of actually coming back together.
Yes.
When you've been wronged by somebody, even if like you were also in the wrong.
Sure.
Like if you said and did hurtful things when you were wronged.
Right.
You should apologize for them.
Right.
Being wronged doesn't give you license to be a terrible person.
And at no point does the movie have him apologize for any of it.
Nor does it think he needs to. Yes, I agree with all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But he then leaves them to talk at dinner and he goes with Crispin to ruin the car, which as much as I hated that, it did make me laugh really hard that they couldn't. They had to crash it because they couldn't hit it. And like they couldn't actually break a window.
Right.
Which
I thought it was very funny.
And American made. And I'm like, no, it's just way harder to break a car window than you think it is.
It is. Yeah. It's not as easy as it seems in the movies. But also they make the joke that it was like, because it was made in the 90s, it's way better made than cars are now.
Right.
And I was like, that's probably accurate. I don't fully know, but I bet that's accurate.
I mean, here's what I will say, because I've been to a rage room where you get to destroy a car, and
me too. It's great.
It's great. It's really nice. But they had an older car and a newer car, and they were equally hard to destroy, but in different ways, because the newer car was like plastic. So it would kind of bounce back. So it didn't, have the satisfying crunch that the metal of the older car did.
Yeah.
And windshields, shockingly hard to break.
Of course.
Like I'm talking 4 full-grown women with crowbars being like, damn, I am tired.
That's because they're made to absorb the damage but not shatter. So like they like spider web and like it absorbs the force of the hit.
Yeah, it's the safety glass.
Yeah, it's so hard to actually break them. That's why in like accidents, a lot of times you'll see them, like something might penetrate it if it's like they hit something hard, like a tree goes through it or something.
Or a tree.
But it's like if someone or something doesn't go through it, it's typically just spider webbed out.
Right. And you expect it to just like shatter. And it just don't.
They don't. Yeah.
Don't. Anyway, so they wreck that car. They crash a tree on it and whatever. And they're like, that'll teach her. And I'm like, I know that she wasn't honest with you, but like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Anyway, he comes back and she basically is like, I got to go talk to him, and goes to his bedroom, is like, hey, we need to talk because I do care about you. And like, I need to come clean. Although he doesn't, he's like, is there anything? And she says, no. And I'm like, no, like just come clean. But she doesn't.
Well, because she doesn't know that he knows yet. And I realize that this is the moment where she should have told him, obviously. That is clearly why he's acting crazy. But like, she doesn't. I do like when they're like arguing a little bit and she grabs his wrist. He's like, ow, my wrist. And then he like flops backwards down onto the bed like a dead fish. I was like, man, I still do that kind of shit. Like I don't mean like the ow my wrist, but like the flopping down. Like I will just like sometimes run and jump and like put my body in just like one solid like log and land on the bed like an idiot.
Oh yeah. I do that in every hotel I check into ever.
It's like silly. It's fun. I do that shit all the time.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
My husband hates it.
Natalie is not a fan. Also, Buttercup doesn't love it either. She's like, are we fighting somebody? What's happening?
What's happening? Anyway, I really didn't like that he was like, yeah, no, I want to have sex now. And she was just like, okay. And he's like, what do I do? And she's like, well, all right, clothes off, whatever.
It's like, get on top or whatever.
Yes.
So I think this scene is very much like a Lonely Island sketch or song to me, because it is like a guy who was like saying things that are like, all right, let's do this. Let's fuck or whatever. All right, how do you do it though? Like, how do you have sex?
Oh, exactly.
Like, it just seems like that dichotomy is very funny to me, and it made me laugh in this moment. I was like, ha.
So I really didn't find this scene funny because I felt like he was specifically doing it to devalue her so he could then be cruel.
That is absolutely what he's doing, Paige. That is accurate to what would most likely happen in that situation based upon like who they are as people. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Everything we've seen from him as a person is not this.
I know.
And
I know.
And so I hate it. But like, because he literally is like, great, now I fucked you. You're awful. And you're like, oh my God, you fucking monster. Like, this is awful.
He also didn't like, she was like, that was my thighs.
Yeah. Yeah. He doesn't care. He's just,
The fact that like he's on top of her for maybe 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And like, they're not having sex. And he like obviously finishes and then like rolls off of her and is like, did you come? And she's like, no. I thought that shit was so funny.
Well, and then literally she's like getting up to get dressed and leave. And he's like, well, I'm going to grow up and live in Paris and then I'll come back and you'll still be here. And she tries to impress upon him like, you're never going to worry about money. I'm going to lose my house. And he's like, you do have a rich dad and you're just waiting for him to apologize. I'm like, she doesn't.
I know.
Man. Like, she doesn't. You don't fucking get it.
Well, okay, she does have a rich dad, but it's not like he has a rich dad.
Right.
Her rich dad is not supportive of her.
Or dead. We don't even know because that letter comes back. We have no idea. Yeah.
That's like the difference there, right? Like, they are not, she like Giancarlo Esposito memes him where she's like, we are not the same. Like, we don't have the same types of problems.
Right.
And I still don't think he understands that at the end of this movie.
No, not at all. And the fact that she's supposed to be like, I'm glad we're friends. I'm like, no, like, no. But she leaves. We cut to a few days later and the busted car ends up on her driveway, which like, there's a part of me that was like, it is absolutely the kind of shit fucked up rich people would do. But there's a part of me that's like, they should have bought her like a car, even if it was the same kind of old car. Like,
or if they just bought her like, I don't know, a new moderately decent car or whatever.
Or repaired it or something.
Yeah, or repaired it, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't.
No.
And I think that this is actually, they don't even do this.
You think he does it?
I think they did go change the title of the car.
Yes.
Gary found the car in the woods, or the police called Gary
and then
to
just
move
towed it.
And then he ran the title and was like, I'll just take it to her because I know where she lives.
Right.
And that's how it ends up there, which is a little bit worse because then the rich parents don't even deliver it to her.
Yeah.
Her friend she used to have a relationship with sort of does.
Right. Well, and he does say that it runs.
Yeah.
He's like, built to last. And I'm like, ugh.
Which is when like she starts going back to Ubering out of a beat up car.
Out of a beat up car.
It's kind of funny.
It is pretty funny and saves up money to, get it fixed and whatever. But then we kind of contrast this with his scene with his parents of like, you got to let me fail or succeed on my own, because that's the lesson the movie thinks he needs to learn. But it's only one of a myriad of lessons.
It definitely is a lesson he needs to learn.
Yes.
But I agree. It's only one of the many lessons he needs to learn. But he is not going to learn the lessons you want him to learn. So I'm glad he at least learned this. I think my frustration with it is the movie did not need to include the other lesson. Does that make sense? You mean this lesson?
No, this lesson's fine. And her lessons are fine.
Of course.
If you changed it so that she was not a victim of economic disenfranchisement and he was not so much richer than her, you could take that out of the movie and do this a different way that would not leave such a gross taste in my mouth about it.
Of course. I agree.
But the movie continually points out the economic part and then doesn't really solve for it at all in the movie.
No. I mean, it solves for it by her just like, I guess I have to move.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I am glad she does, because it doesn't seem like she's happy there.
Sure.
But if she was happy there, you wouldn't want her to move,
Right.
Because she is being kicked out of her house by rich assholes who are moving in.
Right. Well, and this is where she saves the money. She talks to her friends and they're like, you don't seem happy, but like, we're moving because we can't afford a house here.
Yeah.
And so this is where she comes up with the like, I'll sell them the house, blah, 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 blah. And James, Jim.
It's the husband of her friend?
Yeah. Sells one of the boats to make it happen, whatever.
Well, yeah, because that's like the whole storyline is like, we're going to have to move to Florida, right? And like she does have that like conversation with Natalie Morales, and she's like, are you actually happy here, Jennifer Lawrence?
Right.
Like, do you even really want to be here? I understand your mom wanted to, but you don't have to live that life. Your mom wanted you to be happy, not to live her life or whatever. And it's like it's a great scene. It's really sweet. I do love how they get into that though, because when they're like setting up the scene, it's just like clear that like the couple has something to tell Jennifer Lawrence.
Right.
And Jim, her husband, is like, fuck it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
All right, listen, Jennifer Lawrence's character, my wife has something to tell you. And it sits back down. I was like, that's awesome. That's perfect. I love it.
But so she sets this all up, but as they're talking, a guy at the bar overhears her. She takes him home. They're making out.
Yeah.
And she's not feeling it because she's trying to get to know him better because she has grown.
Yeah.
And then he finds the finger trap and he puts it on his dick and then puts it on her finger, which causes injury and embarrassment, and she just kicks him out of the house.
When I saw that, I was like, oh man, like it kind of broke my heart when like they revealed that the surprise with the finger trap is like it was on her finger and on his dick.
Right.
Because I was like, fuck man, why didn't I think of that first? Like that's hilarious.
Right.
I like as a bit, come on, that's very funny.
Right. Although I was like, he might need to go to the hospital.
You definitely would. Those things that would definitely hurt for sure.
It would hurt a lot. Anyway, at this point, this like kickstarts the end of her arc where she burns the letter, she gets the car fixed, she makes up with the tow truck guy.
Yeah.
Not to date, but like apologizes, it is implied.
Yeah, she makes amends. I do feel like this is us as the audience seeing her being like, okay, the way I was living was not good.
Right.
And I need to fix that. And I need to make amends for the stuff that I did that was wrong. This is the side of it we don't get from Percy, right?
Right.
Because he never apologizes for the things he's done wrong while he was being wronged.
Right.
And this is her doing that.
Right. And this is where she sets up the house. She brings them over. She then goes to the animal rescue and is like, is he here? And Crispin's like, no, you lost your chance. But he's playing with Milo, the dog, and she just goes, cocaine! And
Yeah.
the dog freaks out. I was like, yes.
Thought that was very funny.
Jody shows up at her door and he's like, I know the tax assessor. And she's just like, cool, well, I just sold the house. And he's like, can I use your bathroom? It's number 2. And she just shuts the door in his face.
Because no, absolutely not, bro.
Absolutely not. She shows up to his parents' house and they're like, he's not home. He's going to the Princeton mixer. So she shows up at the Princeton mixer. And the first words out of his mouth are, I don't owe you anything.
Yep. He says it like 4 or 5 times while he's running away.
And she's like, I owe you something. And I'm like, no, not anymore. Like, you met you told him the truth. They're like,
yep.
No, you don't owe him anything. You don't owe him anything. And in my notes at this point, I just have, why is she the only one who has to learn something?
Because she's the only person who's not like rich as shit.
I guess. But like, she ends up on the hood of his car. He drives the car into the ocean.
Which like, okay.
And doesn't care because he's just going to get a new car. Like that's.
Of course. Yeah, you're not worried about his car at all.
No.
I did think it was funny that like after Percy gets rejected by like his parents and his like the girl he thought he was dating and he like drives into the sea, even the sea rejects him. Because the sea pushes that car back up on the beach. It's like, no, Percy, we don't even want you.
Right.
You know how many people we've killed? We don't even want you.
We're the sea. But at this point, she says, I'm sorry. Again, which she has already done in the movie.
But I think it's fine for her to apologize as many times as she wants to apologize.
Sure.
I do think it's sad that he never realizes that he needs to apologize for anything. But he probably won't ever learn that lesson.
And in my notes at this point, I just have, why is the poor woman doing all the emotional labor for the little rich boy? Because she's like, hey, you're going to be fine at Princeton. You're going to do great. You're going to go off and do your thing. Now, eventually, he does say, I'm glad you're moving to California. You're going to be okay. We're both going to be okay. That's not an apology, though. That's not nothing. That's just like, yes.
Dick, because I was like, fuck, man, why didn't I think of that first? Like, that's hilarious.
Right.
I like as a bit, come on. That's very funny.
Right. Although I was like, he might need to go to the hospital.
You definitely would. Those things that would definitely hurt for sure.
It would hurt a lot. Anyway, at this point, this like kickstarts the end of her arc where she burns the letter, she gets the car fixed, she makes up with the tow truck guy, not to date, but like apologizes. It is implied.
She makes amends. I do feel like this is us as the audience seeing her being like, okay, the way I was living was not good. And I need to fix that. And I need to make amends for the stuff that I did that was wrong. This is the side of it we don't get from Percy, right? Because he never apologizes for the things he's done wrong while he was being wronged. And this is her doing that.
Right. And this is where she sets up the house. She brings them over. She then goes to the animal rescue and is like, is he here? And Crispin's like, no, you lost your chance. But he's playing with Milo, the dog, and she just goes, cocaine! And the dog freaks out. I was like, yes.
That was very funny.
Jody shows up at her door and he's like, I know the tax assessor. And she's just like, cool, well, I just sold the house. And he's like, can I use your bathroom? It's number 2. And she just shuts the door in his face.
Because no, absolutely not, bro.
Absolutely not. She shows up to his parents' house and they're like, he's not home. He's going to the Princeton mixer. So she shows up at the Princeton mixer, and the first words out of his mouth are, I don't owe you anything.
Yep. He says it like 4 or 5 times while he's running away.
And she's like, I owe you something. And I'm like, no, not anymore. Like, you met you told him the truth. They're like, no, you don't owe him anything. You don't owe him anything. And in my notes at this point, I just have, why is she the only one who has to learn something?
Because she's the only person who's not like rich as shit.
I guess. But like, she ends up on the hood of his car. He drives the car into the ocean. Doesn't care because he's just going to get a new car. Like, that's...
Of course. Yeah, you're not worried about his car at all. I did think it was funny that like, after Percy gets rejected by like his parents and his like the girl he thought he was dating, and he like drives into the sea, even the sea rejects him because the sea pushes that car back up on the beach. It's like, no, Percy, we don't even want you. You know how many people we've killed? We don't even want you.
We're the sea. But at this point, she says, I'm sorry. Again, which she has already done in the movie.
But I think it's fine for her to apologize as many times as she wants to apologize. I do think it's sad that he never realizes that he needs to apologize for anything. But he probably won't ever learn that lesson.
And in my notes at this point, I just have, why is the poor woman doing all the emotional labor for the little rich boy? Because she's like, hey, you're going to be fine at Princeton. You're going to do great. You're going to go off and do your thing. Now, eventually, he does say, I'm glad you're moving to California. You're going to be okay. We're both going to be okay. That's not an apology, though. Like, that's not nothing. That's just like, yes.
I do think it's like kind, but it's not an apology or an acknowledgement that he did anything wrong while he was like acting like an asshole because he knew, you know?
It felt patronizing.
I mean, I could see that. I don't know that he knows enough, like, but yeah.
I don't think he knows enough to understand that it is, but it is fully patronizing.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck this little
like if that
kid.
was Matthew Broderick's character or even the mom, I'd have been like, oh God, you know, but yeah.
Yeah. But we reveal that she's going to drive him to Princeton.
Yeah.
I do like that when she pulls up, he goes, I actually requested no conversation.
Oh yeah, because
she's
it's
an
the
Uber driver.
Yeah. I did think it was also wild that he is Ubering to Princeton.
No, I think she's just driving him to be nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
I think it's a joke, but like, and she's like, I'll tell you about my new boyfriend. He worked with law enforcement, had a bit of a drug problem, and it's Milo the dog. And I do love that.
I do love that when she's explaining it, she's like, well, I got a new boyfriend. Do you want to hear about it? I mean, he's like, no. He's like, he used to be in law enforcement, but he got addicted to drugs, so he had to stop. And she's like, do you want to hear about him? No. And then she reveals it's Milo. I thought it was awesome. Because Milo's a cute dog, and it's not his fault cocaine's amazing. Like,
I mean, it's wild that she's going to take him to California with that bad of a cocaine problem. But sure.
And that's the movie. So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what did you think about No Hard Feelings?
I needed one more pass on the script to resolve some of those issues. One more pass to give me either a thoughtful I'm sorry or to remove the classism overtones if you're not going to resolve them.
Yes. Or just like change the setting to where gentrification and this class issue isn't even a thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Because it's not like the car they're giving away is like a prized possession.
Right.
Like a random family might have a fucking
Buick,
25-year-old Buick that their granddad drove and don't need anymore that they want to give away.
When he says he's like, my grandfather shot himself in that Buick, I was like, that might be true. That's how people end up with those cars.
I wanted there to be like a running joke after that about like, did he kill himself in that car? Like, were there irregularities in the pension fund? You know, like that kind of a thing.
What's happening?
Yeah, you don't know. Anyway, but that would have been very, very funny. I have similar issues with the movie, but I think because the movie doesn't dwell on them, I don't really, like, it doesn't damage the movie for me. And I did think it was pretty funny, but I don't think I'd ever watch it again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's a bad movie.
Sure.
It's just fine. It's a fine movie, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think everyone in it does a great job. Like, I've never seen the guy who played Percy in anything. I think he's great. He played it great.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, no, I think he does a great job.
Yeah. Anyway, Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
I do. Let me start out with my personal fun fact.
Well, here it is with your fun facts.
Personal fun facts. All right. So the mom, Percy's mom, is played by a woman named Laura Benanti, who previously did a lot of Broadway work. And I have actually seen her on Broadway.
Really?
Yes.
Awesome.
In 2006, my family and I went to New York and we saw preview productions of The Wedding Singer. So before it actually went up, they were doing previews. We were able to see him, and it was her and Stephen Lynch. And they are also the cast recording.
Awesome.
But they were incredible. Like, one of the worst things that ever happened to that play was them changing out Stephen Lynch. He was great. But she, at a certain point, not long after that, injured herself in a production of Into the Woods. I should say got injured somehow during a production of Into the Woods.
Really?
Badly hurting her back and neck.
Oh, no.
And it forced her to kind of take a step back from stage acting, but I was actually really glad to see her here. Glad to see she's still working.
Yeah, she's great.
Because it's real hard to come back from like a serious back injury.
She's really good in this movie.
Yeah, she's really good in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, ask Luigi.
Yeah, that's my personal fun fact. Okay, after hearing criticism about the 15-year age gap between the two main characters, which that's not the part of the movie I have a super issue about, because everyone is legal, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I do think it means that it's not very romantic, and that the hopes of them having a longer relation after that are, not really likely. But like, for what this movie's trying to do, it didn't bother me as much. But
yeah,
the director pointed out that there was a 15-year age gap between the characters in Silver Linings Playbook, and no one complained about that.
I didn't realize it was that wide. Although I've seen Silver Linings Playbook once, and it was a long time ago. But yeah, I didn't realize they were 15 years apart in that.
Yeah. Now, Jennifer Lawrence has described working with Andrew Barth Feldman, who plays Percy, as akin to working with Christian Bale due to their improv skills. And honestly, he's doing a great job. It's just the story has some issues, but he's doing great.
I agree, yeah.
And he delayed going to Harvard to star in this film.
What?
Yep.
Wild. So he, might just be this guy, this kid.
Well, maybe. But, not everyone who goes to Harvard is rich. There's a lot of scholarships going on. But,
That's fair, and I do not know. But, Paige, I will just tell you that actor's name is Andrew Barth Feldman.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't know, but might be rich as shit. Have no idea. He also might not be and might be there on scholarship. Have no idea. But it's cool either way. I think that's awesome. Good for him.
Yes. He has also said that on day one when he met Jennifer Lawrence, they told each other their deepest, darkest secrets. And it only got deeper from there, and they had great chemistry. She says this was her most fun film to make. And the plot for this came from an actual Craigslist ad sent to Gene Stupinski, the director, by producers Mark Proficio and Naomi Odenkirk, basically with one of them having told Jennifer Lawrence the story over dinner with her in mind for the role. So they found a real Craigslist post and wrote a movie around it.
What?
With Jennifer Lawrence as the lead.
It's real?
I kind of love that story.
I mean, I think that's wild. I sort of want to know what actually happened with that.
With the the ad?
Yeah.
Well, I do know that as part of a marketing campaign for the movie, they replicated the ad or similar ones. Like they changed it enough because you can't just, post it. But it the ad said, "Need a car, date our son." And they were basically designed to mimic the real life one and also the one in the film.
Okay, that's wild.
Yes. And it is actually 12, not 15-year difference in this movie.
Oh, okay. So it's less than Silver Linings Playbook.
Yeah, it's less than Silver Linings Playbook.
Wow. Okay.
The age difference between Matthew Broderick and Laura Benanti playing Percy's parents is a 17-year age difference, which I thought was intentional. I thought it was meant to display his dad marrying a younger lady because he's a rich dude and they tend to do that.
I thought it was too. I definitely got like that Percy was her son,
right?
But he might have been the second family that Matthew Broderick had started.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. I thought that too.
Like he's got 4 other kids with his first wife.
Sure.
Who also has a place on Montauk that he pays for.
Yes.
Not that this is an affair.
No, a second family. Yeah.
Yeah, she is substantially younger.
Yes. Now, he does sing, Andrew Barth Feldman does sing in the film. He has done a number of musical theater productions.
Paige, I have a wild story about that I just came across.
Oh, because he took over Evan Hansen. Did you see him when he was Evan Hansen?
No.
Oh, okay.
But so the way he ended up on Broadway as Evan Hansen at 16 years old was...
At 16, yeah.
His sophomore year of high school, he portrayed Frank Abagnale Jr. in the musical version of Catch Me If You Can. And he won a regional award for that and then was invited to perform at the Jimmy Awards, which is like, it's like a high school, Tony Awards, if that makes sense, where he won Best Actor at that. And then the guy who was the lead producer on Dear Evan Hansen saw the performance at the Jimmy Awards and invited him to try out for Evan Hansen as Taylor was leaving. And so he took over. And so he has sort of had this crazy, meteoric rise from a high school production of Catch Me If You Can, the musical. I think that's cool as shit.
That is cool. But that also supports my potential scholarship to Harvard theory.
Oh, yeah. No, I like I said, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And this story sort of leans that way, although I don't know. It might have been a private wealthy school. I have no idea. It's just a very cool story.
That is a cool story. So when Maddie first walks into the dog adoption center, Crispin is reading Bear by Marian Engel, which is a controversial Canadian novel published in 1976 about a lonely female archivist who has a sexual relationship with a bear.
Oh, Paige, that's not where I thought that was going. Okay.
You're welcome.
May I just say, rawr.
Rawr. When Maddie and Percy go skinny dipping, she says that there's no sharks or jellyfish, but unfortunately several species of sharks and jellyfish can be found around Montauk through all of the summer months.
Yeah, ask Jaws.
Yeah.
Or Quint. Maybe ask Quint.
Ask Quint. Maddie and Percy play laser tag at Quasar. This is a real location in Carle Place, New York, over an hour west of Montauk. Fun fact, there also used to be a Quasar where I grew up that I think now is a Boomers, but Quasar used to be a laser tag place, and there were a number of them.
Yeah, we had a franchise here that I think they had multiple locations, so we weren't the only city that had them, but it was called Laser Quest, and man, did I love it. It used to be on 2nd and Broadway. So where all the clubs are, there was a Laser Quest back tucked in there. So you could have a night out drinking and listening to country music and then stumble into a Laser Quest and find yourself running around a maze shooting people. It was a great location and a fun time, but it went out of business because it wasn't what is now downtown Nashville.
All right. I'm going to end on probably one of the weirdest fun facts we've ever had for a movie.
Nice. Was all the corn polyurethane or whatever?
Yes. No, but in the mid 2010s, one of the producers, Amy Pascal, tried to restart a film project that she had been working on between the late 1980s and early 2000s called Pincushion, with Jennifer Lawrence starring. Pincushion was originally a sci-fi action horror set in an apocalyptic future where a mercenary, played by Jennifer Lawrence, is hired to deliver a serum to battle some dangerous virus that's basically taking over what's left of the United States through roads, deserted locations filled with mutant creatures. There's a draft of the screenplay for this that is available online that people have found.
Oh, cool.
And it includes a scene very, very similar to one from No Hard Feelings, where Jennifer Lawrence's character, the mercenary, is skinny dipping in a river at night with her partner, only to be attacked by a mutant who attempts to rape her
Oh,
when she gets out.
okay.
But at the last second, they fight it off while nude and kill it and run away in their vehicle as more mutants start to arrive.
Okay.
So this would have almost been the second time Jennifer Lawrence would have to skinny dip and then fight someone nude on the beach.
I bet she picked up sand and gutter chucked it into that mutant's face.
I hope so. And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Now let's talk a little bit about box office. Oh, wait, before we do, though, if they were Ubering him from Montauk Islands to Princeton, New Jersey, the cheapest that would cost them is $561.94. I just looked it up.
That was actually right. I was trying to guess it in my brain. I was like, it's probably about $500. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be terrible. I would not want to be in an Uber that long.
Sure.
Okay, but this movie came out last year. What do you think it cost to make the movie No Hard Feelings?
Despite probably being filmed mostly on location in Montauk, I think this actually probably only cost about $12 million. If it costs more than that, it's Netflix laundering money.
Okay, so this came out in theaters. So, like, it's on Netflix now, but Netflix didn't make this movie. And it did cost more than that. Although I do think your reasoning is sound.
How many theaters did it come out in? Because I remember this coming out on Netflix.
Yeah.
So that's wild. So it had a wide release, just not well known.
It was as wide as you can. It's like 3,200. The reason it was on Netflix pretty quickly is because it didn't do amazing,
well.
although
yeah.
We'll talk about it. Yeah. But Paige, did not cost $12 million. It cost $45 million.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Who is laundering money? Damn. There's no reason for this to cost more than, I would say, $20 million. There's no reason.
I mean, aside from like maybe salaries, I kind of agree. Although there are some like mansions you'd have to rent for a day.
Yeah.
But that doesn't get super, super expensive. It's crazy expensive. Like you couldn't do it personally, but like movies do it all the time.
Yeah. And also, whose salaries? It's her and
Jennifer
maybe
Lawrence.
Matthew Broderick.
Those are the two.
But even then, that's still, that's a lot for this.
Agreed.
It's not on the screen.
But anyway, this movie did premiere on June 23rd, 2023, and it was fourth the weekend it came out. It was beat by the number one movie that weekend, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh, that was
number
a good
two was Elemental. Number three was The Flash. Number four was No Hard Feelings. And number five was Transformers Rise of the Beasts. But Paige, what do you think No Hard Feelings made in its opening weekend?
At fourth, I think it would have been lucky to make $2 million.
Oh, Paige, this is summer. This is like,
okay.
This is when you can't be a bitch in Montauk as a service industry worker. So it's definitely more than that.
So then like $8 million.
So yeah, it actually made $15 million. It was still fourth, but it made $15 million. And honestly, all of them were pretty close. The number one movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, was just over $19 million. So it's like they were all right there. Transformers Rise of the Beast was at like 11.4. Anyway, this movie was fourth in its opening weekend and the second weekend it was out, and then fell to seventh and then eighth in its fourth weekend and 10th in its fifth, and then was way out of the top 10 after that. But Paige, what do you think it made domestically at the box office in 2023?
Let's see. Domestically, it made 15 the first week. I think this is lucky to top out at 30.
Ooh, Paige did a little bit better than that. It made $50.4 million domestically, which is a little bit more than the budget.
Yeah.
But it did also bring in $33 million internationally. So it did bring in $83.4 million. So it did make money, although I do think it was seen sort of as a flop a little bit in the U.S. because of it does cost money to market a movie, and they definitely marketed it more than that profit margin, at least in the domestic market.
At $45 million and only making 80 worldwide, skin of its teeth, this probably still lost money.
In the box office, it may have. It depends on what they spent on that marketing budget, but I'm sure they made money in like selling the rights to Netflix and stuff like that. But you may be right. It may not have made money or turned a profit when it was in theaters. Yeah. But that's your box office. So do you want to hit him with that romance scale, Paige?
Our romance scale is a scale of 1 to 4 of how romantic we found this movie. Todd.
It's a 1 for me. It very much is a coming age of tale for two different people. Yeah. And it's mainly just for Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I would have it at a 1 as well.
Yeah. So this week, I made you guys watch No Hard Feelings. What are we going to watch next week, Paige?
Okay, so for as bonkers and problematic as this movie was, I wanted to pick one that's even more bonkers and more problematic, but also has songs.
Ooh.
So Todd, are you ready? The people have been clamoring for it. They've been asking for it. I do need to clarify if you've seen the first one. I assume you have. But we're going to watch Grease 2.
I have seen the first one, obviously. I have not seen the second. So,
yeah,
can't wait to watch this because from what I understand, it's weird.
It's both weird and bad, but also Shooter McGavin is in it. And like,
I hear that guy eats pieces of shit for breakfast.
Shooter shoot. And it is... For as classic and iconic as the original Grease is, it will baffle you that the second one got made. And that's the best kind of movie to laugh about.
Love it.
So, it's streaming almost everywhere. So buckle up and we're watching Grease 2 next week.
All right. So your homework is to buckle up and watch Grease 2 and then report back for that episode.
Hey, Todd, do you have any reviews for us?
I do. Actually, I'm going to start with this Spotify comment from our most recent Pottersville episode. And I'm going to read this. It came in an hour ago and it's very funny to me. So I'm going to read it. And it's King Spearman 19 who says, as a future CPA, I would like to let it be known that our conventions are not as boring as the Shannon Greer kiss from this movie. We are some dang ass freaks.
I'd believe that. I believe the number of people who are freaks.
So, I actually would believe that, too.
Yep.
Yeah. They seek out adventure outside of their day job, so it kind of makes sense. And I apologize for any aspersions that I may have cast on what those conventions might be like. You freaks, enjoy your freakness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to have us read your freaky comment or 5-star review, leave us one, and I will do just that. So, yeah, if you guys like this show and want to hear our other show where we talk about horror movies, that is The Horror Virgin. That's the only other podcast I am on, but Paige is also on Cult Podcast, which you can find at Cult Podcast. And you can find us on social media. I am at Todd J. Awesome, literally everywhere. Paige is at Paige Wesley on Instagram.
No, it's at Rampage Wesley on Instagram and TikTok, at Paige Wesley on Twitter.
That's right. All right. So that's where you can find Paige. If you want to find the show, we are at Romancing the Pod Show, right?
Yep. Romancing Pod Show on Twitter.
Well, and Instagram, right?
And Instagram, but it's show SHO because character limits. If you start typing Romancing the Pod, it'll come up.
It'll definitely come up on Instagram. I don't know about Twitter because I haven't posted on Twitter in a hot ass minute. So who knows? But that is where you can find more of us. So yeah, guys, give us a follow. Support the show any way you can. We'd love it.
Smash that like button.
Hell yeah.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm Todd.
And you complete us.
Gentrification. Bye. Everyone should gutter chuck sand in their enemies' eyes. Nerds.
Pocket sand.